I never imagined that a casual visit to my girlfriend's house could turn my life upside down. The moment I stepped into their living room, I felt an odd tension in the air, one that I didn't understand at first. Her brother, Ryan, was sitting there, casually flipping through a magazine, but the way he looked at me made my stomach twist. There was something in his eyes, calculating, curious, almost challenging. "Hey," I said awkwardly, trying to sound casual, "how's it going?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. He just stared. I shifted uncomfortably under his gaze, suddenly aware of every crease in my shirt, every hair out of place. "You're different than I expected," he said finally, a small smirk curling on his lips. I laughed nervously, trying to play it off. Yeah, I guess." But the smirk never faded. Instead, he stood up, circled me slowly, and said, "You know, you could be amazing. Like, really amazing." Thanks." I muttered, unsure what he meant. Ryan leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I could make you look like my dream girl." I blinked. "Your dream, what?" He shrugged casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "I mean, you could trust me. I know exactly what would look good on you. Clothes, hair, makeup, the whole transformation. You'd be perfect." I laughed nervously, thinking it was some joke. But there was a glint in his eyes that told me he was serious. "You're not serious," I said, shaking my head. "I am," he replied. "It'll be fun. You'll see a side of yourself you never knew existed. Come on, what's the worst that could happen?" By the next morning, I found myself standing in front of his massive mirror, my reflection already different somehow, but nothing like what was about to happen. Ryan had laid out a selection of clothes on the bed, dresses, skirts, delicate tops, all in soft pastels and flattering cuts. My heart raced. "You're going to start with this," he said, holding up a pale pink dress. "It'll suit your face and frame perfectly." I hesitated, looking at the delicate fabric. "I don't know if—" "Trust me," he interrupted, a commanding edge in his voice that made it hard to argue. "Step into it. You'll thank me later." I swallowed, my hands trembling, and slipped into the dress. It was softer than I expected, almost comforting, but it made my chest feel exposed in a way that was entirely new. I looked at myself in the mirror and froze. I didn't recognize myself. The dress softened my silhouette, hugging my curves in places I hadn't noticed. My face looked sharper, delicate, almost ethereal. I felt a rush of embarrassment, but also something else. Curiosity. Excitement. Ryan clapped his hands lightly. "See? Already amazing. Now, the makeup." I had never worn makeup before, just the occasional concealer for a pimple. But Ryan guided me patiently, his hands steady as he applied foundation, blush, and eye makeup with professional precision. He explained every stroke, every shade, how to accentuate the right features. "This is intense," I whispered, my voice shaky. "You're doing fine," he said, smiling. "Look at you, gorgeous." By the time he applied the lipstick, I barely recognized the person staring back at me in the mirror. My lips were fuller, pinker, my eyes framed perfectly. My hair, once messy and unstyled, now fell in soft waves around my shoulders. I felt transformed. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. I look different." "Different good," Ryan said, tilting his head. "You look like you belong here, like this was always meant to be you." The next few days were surreal. I was thrust into a whirlwind of new experiences. Ryan insisted I try various outfits, practice walking gracefully in heels, and even adjust my voice to be lighter and more melodic. Every glance in the mirror made me both anxious and fascinated. "Don't slouch," he'd say, adjusting my shoulders. "Posture is everything." "Your smile, softer. Eyes more inviting," he'd add as he guided my expressions. I couldn't believe how detailed this was. I'd never thought about these things before. But slowly, I started noticing subtle changes in myself, not just my appearance, but the way I felt. There was a new confidence simmering under the surface, even as embarrassment bubbled alongside it. When I walked into the kitchen in one of his carefully chosen outfits, my girlfriend nearly dropped her cup. "Whoa, you look, wow," she said, her eyes wide. Ryan just grinned. Told you. She's perfect. I blushed fiercely, half from the attention, half from the thrill of being molded into something new. At school and work, I began testing the transformation. Every casual outing became a social experiment. People stared, complimented. Some even approached me, struck by my appearance and newfound aura. One afternoon, at a cafe, a stranger said, "Excuse me, I just have to say, you have an incredible sense of style." I felt a thrill run through me, an addictive mixture of embarrassment and pride. My voice caught slightly as I murmured, "Thank you." Inside, I was buzzing with adrenaline. Ryan's voice echoed in my mind, "This is you. Own it." But it wasn't all easy. There were moments of doubt and fear. On the bus ride home one evening, a group of teenagers laughed and whispered, making me feel like a fraud. I wanted to shrink back, to hide my transformed self under hoodies and baggy jeans. But then I remembered the thrill of recognition, the confidence I had felt in public. I straightened, chin up, ignoring their whispers. For the first time, I realized this version of me wasn't just a mask, it was a part of me. Back at Ryan's, he handed me a new outfit, a sleek, form-fitting dress in a deep blue. "Tonight," he said, "we go out. Full public test. You ready?" I nodded, heart racing, excitement and terror intermingling. The night out was exhilarating. Every step in the heels was a conscious effort, every glance in the mirror at the restroom a confirmation of how far I had come. Compliments poured in. I laughed more than I had in weeks, felt lighter, freer. And then, the moment came, the confrontation. A friend from work saw me, eyes wide. "Wait, is that you?" I froze. Every insecurity surged at once. Could I explain? Should I hide? Ryan stepped beside me, a calm anchor. "Yes, it's her. She's amazing, isn't she?" And in that instant, I made a choice. I smiled, lifted my chin, and said, "Yes. This is me." From that night on, I embraced this new identity fully. At home, at school, in every interaction, I no longer felt like I was performing. I was living. The mixture of fear, excitement, and empowerment became my normal. Ryan watched proudly, his smirk softened into something genuine, satisfaction, admiration, maybe even pride. My girlfriend hugged me one evening. "You've changed. And it's incredible." I laughed softly, feeling the truth of her words. I had changed, but in a way that felt authentic. I had discovered a side of myself I never knew existed, guided by the most unexpected mentor. Now, as I reflect on everything, I realize something important. Transformation isn't just about appearance. It's about discovery, courage, and embracing parts of yourself you never imagined could exist. Ryan's bet, his insistence, pushed me beyond fear, beyond hesitation, into a world where I finally felt fully alive. I am his creation, yes, but more than that, I am my own. Stronger, bolder, and unapologetically me. And every time I look in the mirror, I smile, not just because of what I see, but because of who I've become. I never thought a simple bet could change everything. But here I am. Beautiful, confident, and completely myself. I never thought a single evening could completely turn my life upside down. It started innocently, or at least, I thought it did. My girlfriend, Mia, had always been playful, but her brother, Alex, had this mischievous, almost unnerving charm that made everyone uneasy. That night, I was just supposed to help him with a small dare, a silly joke. But nothing about that night remained small, and certainly nothing about me stayed the same. It all began when Mia dragged me to Alex's apartment. "Come on, it'll be fun," she insisted, bouncing on her toes. I was hesitant, of course, because I wasn't particularly close to her brother. Every encounter so far had been a mix of teasing, subtle challenges, and the unmistakable glint of amusement in his eyes when I looked uncomfortable. I should have known. When we arrived, Alex greeted me with a smirk that sent a shiver down my spine. "Ah, the boyfriend. Just in time," he said, leaning casually against the doorframe. "Mia tells me you're open-minded." I laughed nervously, unsure how to respond. There was something in his gaze, like he already knew more about me than I realized. That's when he pulled out a small, delicate box. Inside was a lipstick, bright, bold, an almost theatrical shade of red. "Try this," he said casually, as if offering me a cup of coffee. "It'll suit you." My heart skipped a beat. I stared at him, then at Mia, who just shrugged and smiled. "It's just for fun," she whispered. I hesitated, but the Tao in my chest, the need to prove myself, to be a good sport, won over my better judgment. I took the lipstick, feeling its slick texture against my fingers. The moment I applied it, I felt a strange tingling sensation, almost like the color was crawling into me, reshaping me in ways I couldn't understand. I laughed nervously, brushing it off as excitement, but when I glanced at the mirror, I froze. It wasn't just the lipstick. My face, my features were subtly different. Softer, more delicate. My jawline less harsh, my lips fuller, my eyes brighter. I blinked, touching my cheek, feeling a strange warmth I hadn't known before. "Alex," I whispered. He smiled knowingly, as if this was exactly what he had planned. "That's just the start," he said softly. "Wait until you see the rest." From that moment, everything began to shift. That night, in the privacy of his apartment, I tried to dismiss what was happening as a weird effect of the lipstick. But every time I moved, every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a version of myself I had never known, vulnerable, sensual, undeniably feminine. The next morning, I woke up in my own apartment, but something was off. My body felt different, lighter, softer. I looked down at myself and realized that even in my clothes, I looked different. My chest, my hips, the curve of my waist, it was subtle but undeniable. Panic rose in my chest. "No, this can't be real," I muttered. I tried to remember the lipstick, maybe tell myself it was just a hallucination, but deep down, I knew this wasn't a trick of the mind. Over the next few days, life became a minefield. Every interaction with friends, co-workers, even family felt charged with tension. How do I explain this? Who would understand? I avoided mirrors, avoided cameras, avoided anyone who might see me too closely. But hiding was impossible. The changes weren't just cosmetic, they were physical, instinctive. My voice was softer, my movements gentler. Even when I tried to act like myself, there was a grace I hadn't possessed before. Mia noticed first. She walked into my apartment one afternoon and froze. "Wow, you look different," she said cautiously. Her eyes were wide, almost incredulous. I ran to the mirror, seeing the transformation reflected back. It was no longer subtle. My hair, longer and silky, framed a face that looked unmistakably feminine. My body had shifted further, my clothes now ill-fitting in ways I hadn't anticipated. I don't know what's happening," I confessed, voice trembling. Mia stepped closer, her hand gentle on my shoulder. "Alex, he did something." That night, she trailed off, eyes flicking toward me. "I think he changed you." Changed me. The words echoed in my mind. I wanted to be angry, but a small, terrifying thrill ran through me. The idea that someone could see me differently, mold me, it was frightening, but there was something intoxicating about it too. In the days that followed, I experimented in secret. Alone in my apartment, I tried different clothes, makeup, even experimenting with my voice. Each time, I discovered new reactions, not just from myself, but from the world around me. Strangers smiled more, looked longer, treated me differently. The power, the vulnerability, it was dizzying. I remember the first time I went out like this, in public, fully embracing the changes. I wore a simple dress, minimal makeup, just enough to feel like myself but also other. The way people responded, the small glances, the subtle compliments, it made me flush with an emotion I didn't fully understand. Fear, yes, but also exhilaration. Every step I took reminded me that I was no longer just the guy I used to be. I was something else, something beautiful. Weekends became my testing ground. Cafes, bookstores, even parks, I explored my new identity cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. Every interaction was a lesson. Every smile, every compliment, every glance in my direction built me up, shaped me. Alex was always there, subtly guiding, watching, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. But not everything was easy. The more I embraced this new self, the more I feared discovery. Friends would comment, sometimes teasing, sometimes with genuine curiosity. I had to navigate conversations carefully, balance the old and the new, hide what I wasn't ready to reveal. At work, I became hyper-aware of every gesture, every word. Every day was a dance, and one misstep could undo everything. Then came the confrontation, the moment I knew change was inevitable. One evening, Mia invited me to Alex's apartment again. She was nervous, biting her lip, but Alex, as always, was calm, almost smug. "It's time," he said, eyes locking with mine. "You've embraced it fully, haven't you?" I froze. I had. And I hadn't. The truth was, part of me loved this new self, this version of me that was undeniably feminine, undeniably desirable. But another part of me feared what it meant. Could I go back? Would I want to? Alex stepped closer, taking my hand. "You don't have to hide anymore. You can be who you are, fully. And if you choose, you can embrace it completely." His words were like a key, unlocking something inside me I hadn't dared admit. That night, I made my choice. I let go of the fear, the hesitation, the old self that clung so desperately to familiarity. In front of Alex, in front of Mia, I allowed myself to fully become the person I had been slowly discovering. The sensation was electric, freeing, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. From that moment on, life transformed completely. I walked taller, moved differently, spoke with a voice that felt natural and right. Friends, family, co-workers, they noticed. Some were surprised, some were confused, some were delighted. But through it all, I felt authentic, whole in a way I had never known. Alex remained a guiding presence, a mischievous mentor in this strange journey. Mia was supportive, laughing, teasing, and encouraging me in equal measure. And me? I finally understood the thrill of transformation, not just physical, but emotional, psychological, spiritual. Looking back now, I realize that night was never about a joke, a dare, or a bet. It was about discovery, about courage, about embracing change even when it terrified me. The lipstick, Alex's smirk, Mia's encouragement, they were catalysts for something profound. Something that had always been inside me, waiting for permission to surface. I am no longer just who I was before. I am a living testament to transformation, to embracing what scares us, to stepping into the unknown and finding empowerment on the other side. I am his dream girl, yes, but more importantly, I am my own. And every time I look in the mirror now, I see not just beauty, but courage, authenticity, and a freedom I had never imagined possible.